Welcome back into the Cowboys Report. I am Tom Downey. We are live here once again. No Madden Sim today. Producer Chris is out. It didn't feel right to do a Madden Sim without Chris. We got legendary producer Jack Lauderay back behind the camera for the first time in a little bit. Jack, happy to have you back, my friend. We'll adjust the mic.
Oh, here it is. Tom, did I take a time machine back to 2021? Because this is crazy. This is crazy. Tom is back in the studio. I'm very happy to be here, Tom. Very happy to be back on the Cowboys Report. We're going to have fun today.
No Madden Sim, but we got plenty on the Cowboys. Might even have a chance to slap Chugs. We'll see what happens. First up, question of the pin poll of the day. What will the Cowboys end up doing with Donovan Wilson? Very interesting update that came in from Nick Harris we'll discuss. What will Dallas end up doing? K for keep, C for cut. Vote at the pinned poll and, of course, in the comment section of today's show. Very nice 69% voting on the keep. Now it's 70, but we got it anyway. So back down to 69. K for keep, C for cut. Let me know in the comments of today's show. We'll discuss latest there on Donovan Wilson. I think they keep him because you could have cut him months ago if you wanted to. Now, if he's bad at camp, that does change everything, but we'll break down the latest on that front. K for keep, C for cut. Let me know in the comments of today's show. We'll also discuss some running back conversation. So, who will end up with the most rushing yards for the Dallas Cowboys this upcoming season? Let me know in the comments of today's show. It's JW for Javonte Williams, MS for Miles Sanders, JB for Jaden Blue, O for other. Now, other, I guess, could be somebody else. Ecuador Man says me, which, again, is attempted homicide because I would not survive if I was out there as the running back. Adrian's got Jaden Blue. Daniel's got Javonte Williams. Same with Cowboy Rob. Jaden Blue from Steven. NFL Prod says JB or JW. No votes yet for Miles Sanders, which is understandable with just where he's at in the course of his career. Up there, right on cue, is one from Lee Lilly. So keep the comments coming. Who ends up with the most rushing yards for the Cowboys? JW, JB, MS, O for other. There is a scenario in which one of Javonte or Miles Sanders would make the Cowboys roster. Those guys are not necessarily roster locks. I think I'd lean them more in the safe category, but it's not guaranteed they end up making it. So who ends up in the Cowboys in yards on the ground? Let me know in the comments. And our next question is to predict the Cowboys' record this year. Well, Jack, you are an unbiased observer here. You have no allegiances as an unbiased, impartial producer. He's going to pull up the schedule. So in the meantime, predict the Cowboys' record this year. Yeah, you're going to have fun going through and getting to the final couple weeks of the season. So give him a couple seconds here. Get your votes in. See 11-6 from Steven and Daniel, 12-5 from Lee Lilly, 8-9 from Ecuador Man, 10-7 from Cowboy Rob. MVB Dad the Third says 11-6. Jack's counting behind the scenes. 9. What do you think that end of season stretch? Yeah,
I'm going to go with 9. When I saw the end of that schedule, when I saw from week 12 on, I'm like, oh boy,
it gets tough at the end. It's the nature of the schedule this year. I see 8-1 from Glenn Wyndham, who I'm going to accuse as being Jeremy Chugs' burner account. Like that just feels like a very Jeremy thing. What you want to go to the super chat minute here real quick, Jack? We can. Speaking of Jeremy. 12-5 from Chauncey, 10-7 from Jason. Caleb says 8-9. This is the super chat menu today. $5, you are entered into our George Pickens jersey raffle. $10 gets you 3 entries into the raffle. $50 for a beer bong. And because Mitchell Renz, our Raiders Report host, is out of town on his honeymoon, we can steal Jeremy today if we want to. $100, we get to slap Chugs with some tortillas. That is the super chat menu. We'll check in again on it throughout the show. But $5 in the Pickens jersey raffle, $10 gets you 3, so it's 2 for 1. $50 for the beer bong, $100 will slap Chugs around. We'll wrap up today's live show with some Dak Prescott conversation, both like short-term and bigger picture stuff, which I know it's always a divisive topic, but I think we can have some fun with it. Rank Dak Prescott for me among NFL QBs. Ecuador Man says, can you say bang when you hit him, please? Why not? That sounds like a great idea. I absolutely will do it. If we get the 100 to slap Jeremy, I'll say bang as well. We'll see if I can. Maybe should I go for the fake slap? I've done that before too. Like fake with one hand and go with the other. That's always good. Just like, yeah, you have two and you fake with the one and go with the other, so they kind of like lean into it. It's perfect. All right, rank Dak for me among NFL QBs. Daniel says he's top 10. John wants to call about DJ Reader. Well, that's a mailbag question. Get those in via hashtag Cowboys, by the way. Let me know where you would rank Dak Prescott among NFL QBs. Ecuador Man says 13 to 16. I think anywhere in that, like, outside of the top 8-ish quarterbacks to, like, the top 15, 16-ish quarterbacks, I actually don't think there's a huge difference. It's kind of like who plays well that given week, who's actually healthy, which has been an issue for the one in Dallas. I don't want to hear about like Kyler Murray, Trevor Lawrence stuff anymore, though. Jack, what's up?
I feel like, and you kind of already said this, but there's like a lot of parity in the middle. Like there's 10, 15 QBs that are like all in the same area. You've got like your elites, and you've got your really bads, and then you've just got like 15 like you're pretty good. Like
great example I think was C.J. Stroud last year, who was like in that like ESPN top 5. He's like 5th or 6th overall. Then he wasn't in the top 10, which I think was a little bit reactionary both times.
The only one that I disagree with from the list that we saw was Drake May not being in the elite category.
Okay, Patriots homer.
But other than that,
All right, rank Dak among, if you can't tell, John.
I mean, he's the next Tom Brady, but whatever.
I'm going to say something inappropriate. So anyway, rank Dak among NFL QBs. I see fully healthy, he's top 8, 10 to 15, 6, 16th. I think Daniel said about the NFL top 179th. He was like 16th last year, which was like really weirdly high, but 79th is actually probably a little bit closer. That was overall, by the way. All right, if you want the Cowboys to actually make it back to the playoffs after the disaster class that was last year, show it by liking the video for me, please, and thank you. Don't be the one who jinxes it. We have that to prove it. The more likes we get as a channel, the more likely it is that the Cowboys come out on top, unless they get riddled with injuries and everything else in there. What's up, Jack?
I do have a question.
Okay.
When you're ranking quarterbacks, how much is like injury concern weighted?
I think the answer is it depends.
Because it
should be a factor for Dak.
Yeah, because like in baseball, I'm going to use baseball here. Like when you're like ranking pitchers and stuff, like injury concern is a thing that people think about. So like maybe the reason why Dak is not rated as high as we might think he is. I think the reason why Dak may not be rated as high as we might think he should be is because he just can't. He hasn't proven that he can like consistently stay healthy.
I think that's
maybe is an argument. I don't know.
I think it's a completely valid one, and maybe it ends up being like tiebreaker stuff between him and other QBs. I think that is a very, very valid thing to bring up, and something I brought up before. Like I'm anxious about the injury stuff, but goal is always a 50% like ratio. We are right there, so like the video if you haven't already done so. Please and thank you. Coming up on today's show, a couple different news and rumors segments. We'll break that down to start. Third segment will be a mailbag. Get your questions in now via hashtag Cowboys or skip that line altogether via a super chat. Then we'll wrap up with the Dak Prescott talk. Not updates, but conversation driven by Mike Florio, ESPN. Then we'll give our own thoughts, and you guys can chime in as well. So get your questions in for the mailbag coming up here in a little bit via hashtag Cowboys or skip that line altogether via super chat. Let's dive in. Welcome into the Cowboys Report. I am Tom Downey. We'll be discussing both Donovan Wilson and Luke Schoonmaker on today's show. Before we dive into it, we are 639 subs away. As of filming this, it might change a little bit, from 218,000 subs here on the Cowboys Report. Help us get there. In exchange, you get free videos each and every single day, usually multiple times per day. Let's go to the Donovan Wilson conversation. Nick Harris, the Fort Worth Star-Telegram, continuing with his updates on the safety room and doing his depth chart series. He went ahead and listed Donovan Wilson as a bubble player in that depth chart review, writing, quote, despite being one of the longest tenured players on the team and a mainstay in the defensive backfield over the last 6 seasons, Donovan Wilson has young players gunning for his spot in 2025. Entering a contract year, the Cowboys could decide to cut ties with Wilson and save $7 million in cap space going into the season. After an offseason cleanup surgery in his knee kept him out of most of OTAs and minicamp, Wilson hit the ground running in camp to thwart off competition, quickly closing in behind him. I think this update from Nick Harris is the most credible, hey, maybe they cut Donovan Wilson buzz we've seen so far. It does still require some ifs and buts, which I do think are sizable and should not be ignored and dismissed altogether. The biggest pushback I've had is it wasn't like once the Cowboys got past June 1st that the money they'd save by cutting Donovan Wilson actually changed. They didn't use their allotment, you get 2, of post-June 1st cuts. So they could have done this at any point and taken its $8.65 million cap hit and saved $7 million with a post-June 1st cut or trade. That was always the case. They didn't have to actually wait until the June 1st timeline. Now, we'll see how things play out and where things go from there. I think part of this is, do the players on the roster flash enough to justify moving on from Donovan Wilson? We'll break that down here more in depth in just a second. But it's the pinned comments on today's show. What do you think the Cowboys end up doing with Donovan Wilson? K for they're going to keep him. C for they will cut him. Let me know at that pinned comment on today's show. K for keep, C for cut. Go ahead and let me know in the comments of today's video. Let's discuss more here on Donovan Wilson. 82 tackles, 4.5 sacks, 5 pass breakups. When Donovan Wilson plays well, it feels like the Cowboys as a team play well. He's kind of one of those, I call them linchpin guys. Those help kind of put you over the edge. You know, he's an X-factor type of player. When he's on, he's making plays. He's forcing turnovers. When he's off, he's getting cooked by George Kittle. He's getting cooked by tight ends. And he becomes a massive liability. And that makes him a bit more of a variance player than what I think the Cowboys would prefer. Now, Nick Harris had 3 players on his list that he called safe. Malik Hooker, Wanye Thomas, and Marquise Bell. Hooker is back now with Matt Eberflus, who was his defensive coordinator in Indy for a little bit as well. Wanye Thomas got a re-signing and RFA type of stuff there, ERFA type of stuff. Marquise Bell did sign a multi-year extension. Thomas is so impactful on special teams, he's not going anywhere. These 3 are going to make the roster. If there's the 4th, and I agree with Nick on this statement, it's actually probably Elijah Clark. This might not actually be a go get a safety outside of the building mindset. This might be a let's go add and keep the UDFA we gave a pretty decent chunk of change to. I think you get Clark to the practice squad. But if Clark, turns in a big-time camp and big-time preseason and, Donovan Wilson's struggling and, Wanye Thomas and Marquise Bell look great and Wilson then drops down to safety 3, then that's tangible change in where he was on the roster. And at that point, if you feel good about your other 4 guys, maybe you might not need Donovan Wilson. Again, we're not done on this conversation yet, but for today only, you can get this CD Lamb jersey, and at least the one I've got linked here, chatsports.com/Lamb. You can get 25% off when you use code HOMERUN. So a rare discounted day for the CD Lamb jersey in honor of the Home Run Derby. I know producer Jack's very excited about that. Link will be in the comments section and the description of today's show. It's chatsports.com/Lamb. Use code HOMERUN for 25% off. I am still unconvinced the Cowboys will end up cutting Donovan Wilson, in part because I'm not convinced the other safeties are going to show what they're able to do, and the Cowboys actually give them a chance. They didn't give them a chance last year when Wilson was healthy the entire time. I don't think any potential Wilson move would be purely money related. If they wanted to, They could have cut him months ago and saved that same $7 million figure. What could change for me is, what if he's not the starter as expected? What if a Marquise Bell, a Wanye Thomas end up being so good in camp / the preseason that the Cowboys say, nope, they're the other starter along with Malik Hooker? In that scenario, as Nick Harris kind of mentioned, it does make some sense to not keep him. Because $7 million for a backup safety, really expensive. Especially for a team that doesn't like paying safeties in general, excluding Hooker and Wilson. As for a trade, yeah, it'd be great. Don't get your hopes up. Because again, $7 million for a safety is kind of expensive. It's only a one-year rental. It's a little bit cheaper. You don't have to pay him multi-year deals, but I would be surprised if there was actual real trade interest that didn't involve the Cowboys eating money, which at that point, it's not even worth it. So be honest with me in the comments, folks. What is the % chance the Cowboys end up cutting Donovan Wilson? Let me know in the comments of today's show. More from Nick Harris now, discussing Luke Schoonmaker in his tight end depth chart series. He listed Schoonmaker as safe, but that doesn't mean his role is as safe as his roster spot appears to be. Behind Jake Ferguson, Nick wrote, a battle awaits in Oxnard as second-year undrafted tight end Brevin Spanford has made an off-season push to be the second option ahead of 2023 second-round pick Luke Schoonmaker. If he's able to pass Schooney on the depth chart, it may put the Michigan product closer to the bubble than he's been going into his third NFL season. Now, of note, he hasn't been on the bubble, period, in his first 2 years. So, asterisk that one. But he is out of guaranteed money now. I do think, and I probably do a full video on this too, so stay tuned. I do think we're trending towards a battle at that tight end 2 spot. Spanford has drawn a bunch of praise this offseason from the media that's been present at minicamp and OTAs, from the coaching staff. Shadi already said he's had the breakout. He's had the jump already, and we're just going to see more of it at training camp. But we have not heard that same buzz for Luke Schoonmaker. It has been far more quiet for the young Michigan product, which is disappointing since you spent a second-round pick versus the undrafted guy in Brevin Spanford. They're two fairly different players. We'll discuss them more in depth here in a second. But Ferguson's going to be tight end 1. Who ends up being tight end 2? BSF for Brevin Spanford. LS, just the initials for all three, for Luke Schoonmaker. Go ahead and vote in the comment section of today's show. On Schoonmaker, he was better last year. Granted, there was nowhere to go but up. The touchdown efficiency drop, but what else was it going to do? He is a better athlete than Brevin Spanford. Schoonmaker is a very gifted athlete, even if we haven't always seen it show up on the field so far. Spanford is big. 6'7", 270. That's college tackle size sometimes. He has to work on his pass catching. That was an issue that he ran into his final year at Minnesota, where he had potential, top 100 pick upside. If he had a good final year at Minnesota, he didn't have that. Ends up going undrafted. Have the Cowboys kind of tap back into that development pattern and got him going to be more like the 2022 guy? Possible. What's going to matter a lot for that tight end 2 spot in Dallas is the run blocking. Now, this is per PFF, so again, you can always asterisk it if you want to. Luke Schoonmaker did not grade out very highly. Princeton Fant didn't have very many snaps either. Jake Ferguson was maybe a bit better than we might expect. But Schoonmaker didn't always have his best stuff. And you draft him to be a good blocker. He has often been put in more challenging spots. That doesn't really show up in the PFF grades. But so is Spanford. And Spanford is significantly larger than Schoonmaker. So it depends in part on what the Cowboys want out of their tight end 2. Do they want the more athletic guy who you think can be a good blocker? That's Schoonmaker. Do they want the bigger guy who is a better blocker right now and maybe has more pass catching development to do? That could be Spanford. A reminder on the Super Chat menu. $5 gets you an entry into the George Pickens jersey raffle. $10 gets you 3 entries. Already got one from Max Finnegan, a.k.a. Max Smash 73, which we'll get to here in a second with producer Jack. So that's 3 entries there, Max. I'm plugging you in right now to the tracker sheet. $50 for a beer bong And if we get a $100 super chat, we get to slap Jeremy Chuggs. He is available. Our Raiders Report host is on vacation on his honeymoon, so we can steal Jeremy. He's not otherwise preoccupied. So $5 into the George Pickens jersey raffle. $10 gets you 3. $50 for the beer bong, and $100 we will slap Jeremy. The $10 super chat. We can go to this in the mailbag too, by the way. From Max, which of these two fantastic outcomes would you prefer? Jay Toya is an All-Pro this year and cut Maffa, or Phil Maffa is an All-Pro and cut Jay? Highly likely, yes, but which would you want more? It's a good question. I think I would take the defensive tackle for a couple of different reasons. A, I think an All-Pro defensive tackle slightly more valuable than an All-Pro running back. They're All-Pros, so like they're really good, but I think I'd rather have the DT because I think that'd be a huge boost for your entire run game and your defense overall. And the other reason, I think the depth beyond Phil Maffa at the running back spot is a lot better than the depth beyond Jay Toya at the defensive tackle spot. If Toya doesn't make the roster, it's Mozzie Smith and Akabasote? I don't know who the backup nose guard is. Winfrey, who's like 280? Maffa, I got Javonte, I got Sanders, I got Jaden Blue. I'll gamble one of those guys ends up being a good contributor. I think Toya, because of the other options, makes the most sense there. All right, before we get to our next segment, what will be the Cowboys' record this year? Let me know in the comments section of today's show what you think that Cowboys record will end up being. I'm going to sip my water here. And then we will get to the rest of the show. So record predictions, sound off for me in the comments of today's show. Luis, however you pronounce it, that's 10-7. 10-7 from Brendan. Seems to have been a popular answer. I think that was my official prediction too. It's just that schedule gets a little bit tough. So keep the comments coming right now. Before we get into the latest Cowboys rumors, whoever comments the most on today's show gets a free entry into our George Pickens jersey raffle. Congrats to Steven GX, who was the last winner by 3 comments. He had 119. So that's a good benchmark to keep an eye out for. Congrats, Steven. You are entered. Any comment you send in, you can just type it all the way out if you want to. We'll get you a raffle entry. Let's talk running backs right now. Javonte Williams, with Bleacher Report naming him a bust for each NFL team, and they picked Williams for Dallas. This is what Bleacher Report's Christopher Knox wrote on Williams. Fantasy fans in particular should probably lower their expectations for the 25-year-old. He hasn't been an explosive back since 2022, his ACL tear, and he's likely to see touches to Miles Sanders, Deuce Vaughn, and rookie Jaden Blue early and often. Look, I think objectively, as a Small King truther, we don't need to put Deuce Vaughn in there. Come on. At least not right now. I think mentioning the fantasy elements, period, kind of like complicates things. That really wasn't the intent of the article, but I digress. Is what it is. I don't have a great feel for what the actual expectation for Javonte Williams, because the range of outcomes is so wide. He could not make the roster. He could look a lot more like that first-year player was. So the fantasy elements complicate things. Just what to expect out of Javonte is not overly clear for me at the moment. I don't think he was that good last year in Denver. Now, he does some good things. He'll pass protect. He can do some pass stuff. But that 2021 guy who was a near 1,000-yard rusher, 4.4 yards carry, we thought was going to have a big-time breakout in 2022, he hasn't come back since the ACL tear. Now, of the guys on the roster, if I had to pick who leads the Cowboys in rushing, it's the same reason we've done the Madden Sims with Javonte as lead back. Miles Sanders is even more of an unknown, frankly. Jaden Blue's a 5th-round rookie. I like him a lot. He's never been a workhorse back. Deuce Vaughn is our Small King, but he's not, productive yet. And Phil Moff is a 7th-round pick. So I'm not assuming Javonte is going to be a 1,500-yard back, but he might end up being the RB1 in the end. So in terms of rushing yards, who ends up leading the Cowboys in that particular category? JW for Javonte Williams MS for Miles Sanders, JB for Jaden Blue, or if you think it's somebody else altogether, type in O and then comment who that is. Let's talk Stephon Gilmore now. Mike Fisher mentioning the Eagles as a possibility for Gilmore in free agency. Now, it's important to remember, and this ties back to what Gilmore had said about wanting to have the right fit. He wants to play for the right team. That means a couple of things. It means he wants to get paid, he wants to play, and he wants to win. Winning is a factor in that. Like, you can't just go play for a bad team and get paid and be happy with it. I think he does want to ring chase at least a little bit. Minnesota was a playoff team last year. He's probably looking for at least something similar. Now, the Eagles, they have Cooper DeJean, who I love. They have Quinyon Mitchell, who I love. It's the other outside corner spot that's a little bit dicey, which is a nice way of putting it, frankly. Keely Ringo I don't trust him. Is Adoree Jackson going to end up being a piece? Is Eli Ricks any good? So I do think corner does shape up as a potential need for Philadelphia. There's a lot of teams that could be in the market for Stephon Gilmore. I think that's why he is content at this point, especially waiting for 3 weeks, a month, to see how things shape up early on in training camp. And they call like he did last year in early to mid-August. Now, if and when Gilmore returns to Dallas, we'll see what happens. No guarantees there. We'll have a video for you. Anytime Cowboys news happens, we have you covered. Hit that sub button, youtube.com/@CowboysTV. Gilmore is not the player he was at his absolute peak, at his absolute prime when he was Defensive Player of the Year for the Patriots. That's not who he is. But he can still contribute. He can still be an average-ish starting corner. And I think if we were to be honest with this Cowboys roster and go, okay, who do we know is an average-ish starting cornerback who is healthy? That name might be one deep. That might just be Deron Bland. Trayvon Diggs is that when healthy, but he's not right now. I think that Kaiir Elam could develop, but that's also an unknown. We're basing it off of minicamp hype, which is always a dangerous game to play. Shavon Revel, I like him a lot. We'll talk about him more in depth in a little bit, actually, but he's also not healthy for the time being. Do we trust Kalen Carson? Izzy Mukwamu? Andrew Booth? I have real doubts. Josh Butler's not healthy. So you probably want to give those guys a couple weeks to prove themselves early on at camp, and then you'll have a feeling, okay, do we have to go get somebody, or are we going to be okay? And if the answer is no, that's when Gilmore makes a lot of sense for the Dallas Cowboys. So be honest with me. Do you want to add Stephon Gilmore? Y for yes, N for no. Sound off in the comments of today's show. Let's move to Shavon Revel, the Cowboys' third-round pick. So USA Today had each of their sub-sites list a surprise rookie. The Cowboys Wire, in front of the show, Katie Drummond, picked Shavon Revel, writing, quote, "The team was ecstatic to see Revel fall to the second round in April's draft, but didn't pull the trigger." They took Donovan Wilson, of course. Somehow, he made it to the third round. With Dallas looking to end their investment in Trayvon Diggs, Revel will be given every possible chance to be a capable boundary corner once he given the green light following his ACL recovery that might delay his debut until October. Once he makes it to the field, though, fans should be surprised if he's one of the better rookie DBs in the game. I am optimistic about Revel. I actually would probably lean towards he's not going to have his debut delayed until October. I think he's going to be ready to go and play in the season. They might limit him a little bit, might give him more of a longer ramp up, but I don't think he's going to start the season on Publis. Maybe the first week of camp or something is very possible there. The talent for me is clearly there. I mean, you can go back to some of our pre-ACL tear mock drafts, and we had him in the first round. This guy was just incredibly talented. He's long, he's athletic, he's fast, he's got ball skills. Like, the talent for me is undeniable. But the injury risk does make him a wild card. You don't know exactly when he's going to be healthy and how long it'll take him to be back to his normal self and then a step forward in his growth. We've seen that before, where it might take you a year to kind of get fully back. So, again, we'll spend some more time on this here in a second. But what is your excitement level over Shavon Revel 1 to 10 is your scale, so sound off for me in the comments section right now. Revel played a lot more in 2023, and he was really good. 14 pass breakups, the 1 touchdown allowed, didn't get beat very often. He didn't play a ton in 2024 after that because of the injury, had some more interceptions, allowed a little bit higher in terms of the completion, had like a couple big plays he allowed that in part were the safety's fault minimum, but I mean the touchdown stayed at 1, interceptions went up in just a 3-game sample size. This is a Cowboys corner through and through. Look at the arm length. It's very obvious, right? I had Revel, even with the knee injury concerns, as a second-round grade, 38th overall, my 4th ranked corner. In the actual NFL draft, he was picked number 76, which is significant value, and he was picked 9th. That's a pretty big gap. And the injury is the reason why he had kind of the early setback before the draft process. That's not a recent one, by the way. We broke that down previously. I don't know if it counts, at least not for me, is he a surprise. Maybe as just a third-round pick, I think that makes some more sense in general. I am excited about him. I'm going to be patient. I'm not going to assume he is an instant impact guy as much as I would like him to be. But I think that when we get to 2026 and 2027 and beyond, we're like, yeah, this guy's awesome. That, given where he was drafted and the injury history, is probably a strong outcome for Revel and for the Dallas Cowboys. All right, the Super Chat menu before we get to the mailbag. $5 gets you into our George Pickens jersey raffle. $10 gets you 3 entries into our George Pickens jersey raffle. Shout out to Max with the $10 Super Chat earlier. $50 will bust out the beer bong and do one of those. $100, Jeremy Chuggs is available. He's not normally, but Mitchell Renz is on his honeymoon, so we can take the normal Raiders Report host. $100, and we'll slap Jeremy with a tortilla. That is the 5, 10, 50, and 100 Super Chat menu on today's show. Now, coming up next, we will have a mailbag for you guys. 2 ways to get in on the show. Number 1 is just use hashtag Cowboys. Now, you're at the mercy of producer Jack picking your question. Are you above bribery or praise to get yourself on or to get them on there, Jack?
I mean, if someone says something nice, I'll be more inclined.
There you go. So hashtag Cowboys gets you in the queue for Jack to find your question, bring it up on screen. If you want to guarantee that you get on in the mailbag, you simply have to super chat like Max did earlier. So hashtag Cowboys or skip the line altogether via the super chat. Only saw a couple hashtag Cowboys come in there earlier. So I see some good generic questions. I saw a good one there on Phil Maffa. I saw something else in there. But you got to use the hashtag Cowboys like Daniel just did, or else Jack simply can't find your question. And at that point, there's a losing battle when there's all of the comments that have come in over the last, 45 minutes, 30 minutes, whatever we've been live for, 35 minutes. Split the difference there, I guess. So get your questions in via the hashtag Cowboys for the Q or Super Chat, and Jack will bring them up on screen. Give you guys a couple more seconds. You can get them in during the mailbag as well. As soon as producer Jack gives me the thumbs up that we're good to go, we will dive into the mailbag. Yes, that is perfect. That is the correct one. So get your questions in via hashtag Cowboys or skip the line altogether via Super Chat. You all set, Jack? He says, yeah, let's do it. Welcome into the Cowboys Report. Tom Downey here. We are diving into our latest Cowboys mailbag from Got Us Way, a.k.a. Manny Palmer. A $15 super thanks. So a bunch of entries. We'll get back to it in the George Pickens raffle. Says, Tom, thanks once again for the amazing work, but I need to be in that raffle. You are entered in. As a reminder, everybody, and Super Chats also work for this, but if you're watching on demand, a $5 super thanks gets you entered in to our second George Pickens jersey raffle. Had the one in the first half of the summer. Now we'll do one in the second half. That's coming up real quick. So if you want in on the George Pickens jersey raffle, send in that $5 super thanks or super chat right now. William Cook is in with a $5 super thanks. Says, great appearance on Blogging the Boys. I think the Cowboys need to sign a one technique before a cornerback. So, William, first off, thank you. I had a lot of fun with my guy RJ. I think both are needs. Corner, part of it is I can find a good corner. Like, there's Stephon Gilmore. There's Rasul Douglas. There's Kendall Fuller. Like, I think it's easier, not that it's easy, but it's easier to find a potential veteran stopgap corner option until Diggs and Revel end up getting healthy, as opposed to having to search through the defensive tackle corpses out there, where like Linval Joseph is one of your two best options. That's dicey. I don't disagree that, for me, it's like pick your order. I think both are very valid options, whether it's defensive tackle or corner. I just think it's a little bit easier to find a name at corner. Like, maybe you can go get a Raekwon Davis, but is he better than Gilmore relative positions? I'm not actually sure. All right, what do you think is the bigger need? C for corner, D for defensive tackle. Let me know in the comments section of today's show. CB for corner, DT for defensive tackle. All right, from Max Finnegan, a $10 super chat. That's some entries in the George Pickens raffle. Thank you, Max. Which of these two fantastic outcomes would you prefer? Jay Toia is an all-pro and cut Maffa, or Phil Maffa is an all-pro and cut Jay Toia? Highly likely yes, but which would you want more? For me, it's defensive tackle, for kind of the similar reason I just mentioned on the last question. All pros are great. Don't get me wrong. I would happily take either. I think it is harder to find a defensive tackle all-pro, and that impacts you a little bit more than the Maffa side, although you would also, I guess you could argue, if you have an all-pro back, that means your offensive line played great, and that might be a bigger deal. But just on an individual answer and ignoring what the impact is from other positions there, I think I can get by if I have Jay Toia as an all-pro. Now I feel great about my defensive line room, and I think I can survive with Javonte, Blue, and Miles Sanders. Somebody gives me decent play. If Maffa's an all-pro, awesome. I feel good about my ground game. If Jay Toia is not good enough to make the roster, who's my other nose guard outside of Mozzie Smith? I get real worried at that point about what the heck my defensive tackle room looks like. From Cowboy Hater, which players need a comeback / breakout year, he says, besides Dak? Look, Dak is one of them. Don't get me wrong. I think, how about Jake Ferguson, tight end? He was not good enough last year. I think he missed having Dak out there, but he was slow to start the season. I think breakout-wise, your last couple first-round picks, right? Mozzie Smith and Tyler Guyton. If either of those players break out, we feel way better about that entire room that they're a part of. From CGW, how does our depth chart look in the safety position? I think solid. I think you can argue if you have a good enough top-end starters, but if we're just counting the number 3 and the number 4 safety, I would have a tough time finding better 3s and 4s in any order than Marquise Bella and Wanye Thomas. And I think they like Elijah Clark, who might be a practice squad guy for them. I think the depth is good on the depth chart. I question if the starters are reliable, impactful, and consistent enough. But I don't think Dallas has much interest in adding a bigger name necessarily. Got a deal alert for you guys. This Cowboys short sleeve hoodie was $55. Now it's just $33. It's on sale on Fanatics at chatsports.com/DAL hoodie. I'll put that link in the comments section and the description of today's show. It's chatsports.com/DAL hoodie. Speaking of hoodie, did you do that on purpose, Jack? Or was that just happy accident? The next guy had hoodie in there. It says, could Joe Milton help our game on designed run plays? The idea of Joe Milton, Cam, I'll say this. I think there is a reason why you don't see a lot of teams deploy the designed quarterback specialty run package outside of maybe some red zone looks in the NFL. Because you almost have to kind of counteract yourself. Like, if you bring out Joe Milton, outside of, like, super short yardage stuff, but, like, If you're bringing him out there on, second and goal from the 6, you almost want to pass because the defense is thinking you're going to run. So, yeah, you almost kind of negate the positive to it unless it's a heavily used package. So, the idea of it absolutely makes sense, but you don't see it deployed that often. I'll put it this way. If Milton starts games, I think at that point the design run play package makes more sense. But if he's just coming in as a sub, I have my doubts. Steven, what one player that hasn't been talked about would you be surprised makes the team? For me, it'd be one of the other offensive linemen like Hakeem Adeniji, a Sadiq Charles, a Nathan Thomas. Like, the Cowboys' offensive line depth chart is unique in the sense that outside of Dakota Shepley, 14 of the 15 players on this offensive line were draft picks or have played actual real NFL games and started them, which is unusual to have that volume. Maybe it's a surprise third or fourth tight end. It's a Princeton fan or Rivaldo Fairweather. Defensively, could Buddy Johnson carve out a role as the last player on the 53, helps out on game day stuff? Maybe. From Tyler Bray, will the Cowboys add a safety like Justin Simmons? First off, glad the former NFL QB still watching. I have my doubts. They just, even if they cut Wilson and save $7 million, I feel like their pitch would be, we like our young guys, which is a pitch they've made before. So do you think, plenty of safety questions today, works out well. Do the Cowboys need another safety? Y for yes, N for no. Go ahead and sound off for me in the comments section of today's show. Cowboy hater, is this just Chugs, by the way? It might be Chugs. Is this the year for us, Tom? Look all right with the build. We added some new pieces, new minds, with everyone getting healthy again. I will not say that phrase because I don't believe in using it. I have to see it. It's been 30 years, essentially. I think I feel better about the direction they are going than what they were last year. I did not feel good about that path. None of us really did. So I think they're heading in a better direction. Does that mean it's the year? I don't think that's even a fair expectation. I think playoffs, yes or no, is a good outcome. Or good benchmark, I should say. William Cook, what is one way to tell that training camp is going well? It's a good question. How about this? They have glowing reviews against the Rams in the joint practice. That's like the one way I'd feel like, okay, it's real. Because it's training camp, I think it is easier to tell if it's not going well. That's because you're still playing against each other. Like the nice part about camp is you actually want your offense and defense to both win some. Otherwise, I kind of think one side of the ball is bad. I kind of want to take away from minicamp of Milton and Cropper, and they're all cooking the second team secondary. That's like the third or fourth team because of injuries. So I think the Rams, that practice, as much as we can tell, is probably a good indication. But another element, be healthy. Don't get hurt is maybe. And those are kind of low bars, but could have been recent years. If you want more free Cowboys updates, then subscribe. YouTube.com/@CowboysTV. From Ghost88, who would you rather have, Jalen Tolbert or prime Miles Austin? Anyone who tells you it's not prime Miles Austin should probably be sent to a mental institution. Do you guys remember the 2009 Miles Austin season? 81 catches, 1,300 yards, 11 touchdowns. That's better than anything George Pickens has done. The answer by far is prime Miles Austin. Now, if the question is Madden Tolbert or prime Miles Austin, that is actually maybe Madden Tolbert. Luis Rodriguez, what percent chance do you guys give the Cowboys to win the NFC East? 25 to 30? I don't think the Giants are a huge threat, but I feel like their 25% goes to the Eagles and some of it to the Commanders. Like, I think it might be high for Dallas. Like, I think right now the Eagles and Commanders are better. Cowboys almost swept the Commanders. Cowboys' schedule is tough. I'm not going to rule it out. The NFC East curse is real. So is the sophomore slump curse, but I think a lot has to go the Cowboys' way. From Cowboy Rob 28, Will Milton and Greer, I was thrown off by Will Greer, have a whole half each preseason in week 1. I don't know. I'm very curious what their strategy is, especially for the week 1. Like, we'll see some of Will Greer, I think, but I don't know how much we get of just Joe Milton. We're going to see a lot of Joe Milton. So maybe it's like a quarter for Will Greer. I think the Cowboys know what they have in Greer. Don't think they quite know yet what Milton is. From Felix, at what point would you add a pass rusher like Clowney or Von Miller? I think if there was an injury, if somebody got hurt, I would be more inclined to revisit that. But I've got a numbers game. I've got Micah. I've got Ezeraku. I've got Fowler. I've got Sam Williams. I've got Peyton Turner. I've got all these guys on my Marshawn Allen too. Excuse me. That's 6 players that are roster worthy. So how do I make room for one of them outside of an injury? Right now, I don't think there's a need. If somebody gets hurt, then we can have a different conversation there. So name a player who you would like to see the Cowboys sign. Let me know in the comments section of today's show. From Daniel, I know I've said it so many times, if we can't stop the run on defense, we're going to be a soft team, and it's not going to lead to playing with the heart and effort. I agree. And it wasn't even just the inside runs. The outside runs were cooking you too. I think you have to do more to stop the run this season. I think that's a huge factor. Pass rushing is a privilege. If you don't stop the run, you don't get that privilege. And that's what the Cowboys feast is pass rush. But I'm still worried about that run defense. From Miguel, Revel is underrated. He will be very good. I was super high on him. I don't know what type of impact he's going to have in year 1, but long term, I remain super high on him. So what will the Cowboys do with Donovan Wilson? K for keep, C for cut. Let me know in the comments section of today's show. Because Jeremy Chugs is in the comments right now. Is that him right now? Come here, buddy. I knew you were looking. Come here. No, we're out of the cut. We're out of the cut. But the super chat menu. I don't know what that is. Oh, it's one of your stretchy things. Very weird. Look who we found. $5 George Pickens jersey raffle. $10 is 3. $100 will slap him with a tortilla. I assume we have tortillas in the fridge still for Sperry. There we go. $100 and we'll slap Jeremy. Okay. It looks so inappropriate. Okay. Oh, yeah. Just keep going. It's a little bit skinny there, buddy. All right.
But you never answered my question.
What was your question? Oh, Joe Milton's better or something. I don't know. Get out of here. You better be trolling Joey with the same amount of passion with the Ravens now.
How does it feel being the second best team in Texas now?
Are you sure about that?
I mean, what happened the last 2 times the Texans and Cowboys played?
I don't have that type of memory. Get out of here.
Hey, little brothers up in Dallas.
You are the little brother. Your logo has the Cowboys logo in it. That's how rent-free it is. Gotcha there, buddy. All right. That is the super chat menu. $5 George Pickens jersey raffle. $10 for 3. I got to put William Cook in there again. I did get him on that one at least. He kind of got me in the other ones there. $50 for the beer bong. $100 will bring Jeremy back in, and we will slap him. We'll get set up, though, for the final segment on today's live edition of the Cowboys Report. Time does fly by. An hour 15 live, give or take. It's about what it normally is there. Brendan asking where on the butt. No, face. Face slap. We're going to slap him in the face. I guess with veto power, I guess we could just slap him wherever the super chatter wanted to. Yeah, as long as it's not with maybe for one area in particular. But $5, $10, $50, $100 are the Super Chat menu items today. Coming up on today's show, we'll discuss if Dak Prescott is on the hot seat, as Mike Florio kind of, but also didn't list him as. And we'll break down the ESPN quarterback rankings and where Dak fits into that. Speaking of rankings, be nice to each other in the comments, please. But where would you rank Dak Prescott among NFL QBs as we enter the 2025 season? Let me know in the comment section of today's show. Mike Florio over on Pro Football Talk doing his quarterback hot seat rankings, kind of, but also not really put Dak on the QBs who are on the hot seat, among the QBs on the hot seat this upcoming season. First, the quarterbacks who were mentioned kind of before Dak. It was Justin Fields, Tua Tagovailoa, Aaron Rodgers, all of the Browns QBs, all of the Colts QBs, and Trevor Lawrence. Now, this first 6 names were kind of more like, hey, if they're not good, it gets actually dicey for them staying as a starter like Justin Fields. They're getting replaced like Tua, or the Browns and Colts guys gets replaced, right? The other quarterbacks then mentioned were Geno Smith, Dak Prescott, Russell Wilson, some weird names of Jordan Love, J.J. McCarthy, Tyler Shock in his 0 career NFL snaps, Bryce Young. I actually don't mind Kyler Murray being on there. Sam Darnold, Matthew Stafford, and some of these, like, and we'll get to his exact quote on Dak. It was kind of like, I put them on here to say they're not on the hot seat, which I think is a really weird way of doing it. But of note, that's half the NFL on that list. And some of them, like he wrote with Dak, weren't actually on there. He just wanted to mention them, essentially. It's fine. Florio wrote, Dak is probably not on the hot seat because his $60 million per year contract would wreak havoc on the salary cap if the Cowboys are going to trade him. He has a no-trade clause. He can waive it in 2026. The complication for the Cowboys is that his $45 million salary for 2027 becomes Florio guaranteed the fifth day of the league year in 2026. So they're stuck with the rolling guarantee structure. All because they waited too long to give him a second contract and then waited too long to give him his third contract. Specifically on the contract side, Florio's right. Whether you want to or don't want to, it's not really a movable contract because it was never supposed to be a movable contract, despite what that one guy up in Cleveland seemed to claim for some reason. And we'll go more in depth on it, but it's just... stuck is actually a pretty good word, for better or for worse. So what is your confidence level in Dak Prescott as the starter for the Dallas Cowboys? Scale it for me from 1 to 10. 1 on the low end, 10 on the high end. The Dak contract is just not one the Cowboys are going to have any interest in shedding because it's just not very movable. This is not, NBA trade offseason where you can just do the salary swaps 1 for 1. This is not contracts that have no guaranteed money. Here is how the Dak contract breaks down for 2026, acknowledging the rolling guarantee structure that Florio pointed out, which would mean, come week 1, the 2027, or week 50 of the year, the 27 money is guaranteed too. The 2026 cap hit right now is $74.09 million. The dead money, if you cut him, is $130. It's a ton of money because rolling guarantee structure. Doesn't make sense to cut him. You could trade him, but that would make it about $90 million. So you're still paying $90 million for him to not be on your roster. You could make him a post-June 1st cut, but that's still just pushing the money off into next year when you're still paying him about the same. So you're not actually saving money. You're not. You're still paying the $130 million at some point. It's just spread over 2 years instead. If you were to restructure Dak as the contract is designed, it brings down his cap hit to $43 million. That's actually not bad at all. In fact, that is actually less than the cap hit he's got in 2025, which is, it happens, but it's pretty unusual that ends up happening. So here's where you're at with the Dak contract. Then we'll talk about Dak, the player. If Dak is good, you're not going to trade him. Like, why would you want to trade a guy that's good? Makes no sense. If he's bad, or knock on wood, worse, if he's hurt, who wants him? Who wants to pay him 40, 45, 55 over the next 3 years? That's not something anyone wants to do. So for better or worse, much like a marriage, stuck is accurate here. Maybe you're happy that he is your quarterback. Maybe you're not. But moving on from Prescott, I guess it's mathematically, technically possible, but you're essentially punting on 2 years at minimum. At minimum, which I don't think would go over very well with some of your other key players on your roster. More on Dak to come and more Cowboys Report videos to come here on the channel. Hit that sub button, youtube.com/@CowboysTV. Let's move then to the ESPN quarterback rankings that came out at the start of this week. Dak did not crack the top 10 of that ESPN ranking, which is really based on NFL personnel voting, executives, coaches, scouts, etc. The top 7 I'm mostly on board with. Baker Mayfield is 10, which I think is, just an aside in general, these rankings are often very reactionary. Like Baker had one really good year. It was awesome last year. Is that going to happen again? Kind of an outlier year. Hurts is 9. Jared Goff is 8. Okay. I'm curious how he does without Ben Johnson. Herbert's 7. Stafford 6. Get that. Jane Daniels is 5. A little reactionary, but he was awesome, so I get it. The top 4, pick your order. That is the right top 4. I will not hear otherwise. Those are your 4 best QBs in football. Then the honorable mentions were C.J. Stroud, Jordan Love, Kyler Murray, Brock Purdy, then Dak Prescott. Aaron Rodgers, Tua, Bo Nix, the other quarterbacks getting votes on that list. Now, it's not exactly fair to count others getting votes as accurate because you're not ranking the top 15. You're ranking the top 10. So you might have a lot of people picking someone as number 11 or number 12 that aren't getting factored in properly. So I do want to acknowledge that. But if we did do it that way, that would make Dak top 15, make him 15th overall. And I think many of you would argue for him to be higher. I get that. I don't have any real arguments that he should be lower. Like, I'm not surprised nor bothered by the rough ranking of QBs anymore. I refuse to fall for the trap. Talk about it. I won't get mad about it. I don't get Kyler Murray being that high. Because the argument's going to be, oh, Dak doesn't enough in the postseason. Okay, that's fair. I agree. Got to do more. We all know that. Let's not put Kyler on there then. Like, come on, what are we doing here? That guy had a terrible playoff game. If Dak did what Kyler did in a playoff game, he would never, ever live it down. But I think the other top 14 guys, your top 13 guys, I guess, have arguments to be in the top 10 conference. I think really that like 8 to 15, 16 range, it's not that big of a difference. And it's not really, doesn't matter either. If you have one of those guys, you should just try to win around him, build around him, which maybe your team hasn't done properly yet. I want to go in depth on this part too. But will Dak Prescott bounce back in 2025? Y for yes, N for no. Go vote in the comments section of today's show. I do want to acknowledge this. We cannot just blame the injuries for Dak Prescott last season. We can't. That's not fair. That's actually revisionist history. If we say, oh, he was hurt, and write off 2024 altogether. He wasn't hurt at the beginning of the year. He just didn't play well. In fact, I was far more concerned about what I saw in 2024, especially after watching all 22 and not just watching the game, than I was in 2022. Those interceptions in 2022, that was Warner's fault. Receivers are out there running the wrong routes consistently. They'll never say it. Gallup was a huge issue. 2024, those were some bad decisions. Now, I think the overall vibes of that Cowboys team were not very good. I think the coaching staff friction, we'll call it, was not very good either. But you can't have 2024 Dak show up again. You need him to bounce back this year. You need him to be the best version of himself, which has been a clear top 10 quarterback. If not even in that, like, maybe he's just in the 5th spot behind the other big 4 guys. If you don't get a bounce back year from Dak Prescott, I get nervous about the way this team looks. It might be real bad because you kind of attached your head coach and quarterback together, which I question how smart that was overall, given who that coach is. But it's not just a rough outlook for 2025. It's rough beyond it. Because that contract, you're kind of stuck with it. So he needs to play well. He's always bounced back after an injury. He has to do it again this season. Our next live Madden sim will be on Monday. So do not miss out. We'll have TBD if we do a live show or not on Thursday. I haven't decided on that front yet. I got travel stuff, so we'll see. Free Cowboys videos throughout the week anyway, and next Monday, the next Madden stream. Next Monday, we have the, pull it up here. Week 16 against Chargers. 3 games left, then the playoffs. Cowboys are in the playoffs, seed to be determined. We got Chargers, Christmas in July against the Commanders. I think I'll wear the Christmas sweater and then have the fan on me the entire time. And then week 18 against the Giants, we might get to play Joe Milton that one. I get to do it. All right, the super chat menu, one brief time before we sign off here. $5, you're into our George Pickens jersey raffle. $10 gets you 3 George Pickens jersey raffle. $50 gets you the beer bong. $100 we get to slap chugs. Jack, sounds like you want to come on here and say some stuff. What's up?
Oh, if the show's ending, I just want to say
yeah.
bye.
Yeah. Well, unless we get a $100 here to slap chugs around here.
Well, if we get 100, then we're partying.
Yeah, slap Jeremy a bunch. It's great. I don't think so. All right. That will do it for us on today's live show. Appreciate everyone who tuned in. Videos throughout the week as well, so do not miss out. Hit that sub button for me right now.